to see so many witches and wizards in the audience. My name is Roger Highfield. I work for the National Railway Museum, but I'm incredibly lucky in that I also work for the National Media Museum in Bradford, the Museum of Science and Industry in Manchester, and the Science Museum in London as well. And one of my strange claims to fame is that I wrote this book, which has come out all over the world. It's the American version. And I wrote it some years ago, and it's really interesting to me as someone with a science background to see how much Muggle science is caught up with the magic of Harry Potter. Now, the first thing I want to find out is, are there any wands or Slytherins or Death Eaters in the audience? You can just identify yourselves. Okay, there would always be one. The last time I gave a talk, I actually gave a talk at the world's first Harry Potter conference in Orlando, and I was attacked by a group of witches here. Strange affair, actually 500 delegates, mostly women in their 20s, which rather surprised me, although it's quite a nice surprise. Now, I've done research. I used to work in a nuclear reactor, and then I worked for many years as a science writer and journalist. And I'm really interested in the magic of reality, about the insights that science give you into the real world. And I really enjoyed J.K. Rowling's books, because to me, not only were they great fun, but I thought that there were lots of fascinating links between them and Muggle science. So what I tried to do is to look at all the things that she proposes and ask the question, could that possibly be true? So let's start off with the owl male. Now, old owls actually act as a kind of bridge between the wizarding world and the Muggle world. They're transporting letters and broomsticks and parcels and all sorts of things. Is it possible at all that you could get owl male going? Well, let's look at it in a very practical way. First of all, we've got to feed the owls. And if you go to the owlery at Hogwarts, you'll find that all this stuff down here is owl pellets. And what's interesting is, you know, if you study carefully what owls poop, you get lots of insights into what they eat. You'll find in owl pellets exoskeletons of insects. You'll find bits of plant, bones, fur, feather, bills and teeth. You can study owl pellets over many, many months or seasons and see how the diet of owls change all that time. You'll find even bird bands in them where they've eaten smaller species that were labelled by diligent ornithologists. Now, we know in the Harry Potter books there are various owls that are pretty famous. You've got Ron Weasley's pig, you've got Harry's Hedwig, a snowy owl, you had Malfoy's eagle owl, and it's got to be said it's going to be pretty expensive to feed a big owl like Malfoy's. Eagle owls are going to eat almost anything that moves. They'll go for beetles, rats, foxes, hares, even unicorns. So to keep one of those happy, you're really going to have to spend a fortune. Now, overall, there are about 300 species of owls, and they've all sorts of sizes. You've got pygmy owls that you get in the southwest of the States and Mexico. They're about the size of a sparrow. And then, of course, you've got an eagle owl like Malfoy's right at the other end of the spectrum, and that is big enough to cart off an owl, cart off a dog or even a parcel. So, first of all, we now know that owl male could carry quite heavy things if you go for the large end of the spectrum. The great news is they can also work well at night as well. Owls have very cleverly designed eyes, so whereas we've got a light-sensitive layer at the back of our eyes called the retina, the owl has got an extra reflecting layer just to get that last bit of light out, so they can see a sort of candle a mile away and things like that. They've got incredibly good night vision. They're also really quiet as well. There was a paper out by a German team just a couple of weeks ago that showed that their wings are very specially adapted for noiseless flight. They fly very, very slowly. They've got relatively little beating of their wings, and that's down to the size and the shape. And of course, that silent flight means that they can hear the scurrying of all these little creatures that they hunt for, and it reduces the chance that they're going to be heard by whatever they hunt. They've got a high curvature of their wings, and again that enables them to beat their wings very slowly. And they've got very feathery edges on their wings as well. That also aids silent flight. In fact, if you look at the plumage of an owl, you find that compared with similarly sized birds, they've got many more feathers. And again, that absorbs the sound that they make. So they're very good. You know, owl male, that's not going to disturb anyone if they're flapping around at night with a Nimbus 2000 or something like that. Now, could it possibly work in the UK? We've got 5 owl species, and it turns out that 2 of those species are migratory, so that means they fly over huge distances. Could they possibly find their way to the Great Hall at Hogwarts? I'm not so sure about how owls precisely navigate, but I know that from lots of other research on other birds that there are all sorts of mechanisms used by birds to guide them over really huge distances. Some of them use stars, some of them use the Earth's magnetic field, and also some of them use the polarization of light. So if you look at a light wave, it can either beat that way or it can beat that way. And the owls, or whatever birds, can use the polarization of sunlight for clues as to where to go. They've also got a pretty good memory. If you talk to Eric Knudsen in Stanford University, he studied the working memory of owls. Young owls can remember things, so they could remember an address. And the other thing is that birds actually can be pretty smart. Now, I don't know much about owl intelligence, but there's been lots of work done on bird intelligence, and these birds, this is a New Caledonian crow. These are probably the Einsteins of the avian world. This is Betty. Betty is the experimental subject of Alex Kochelnik in Oxford University, and she and her kind are really amazing, certainly to Muggle scientists, because if you'd asked Muggle scientists 100 years ago what was a defining characteristic of human beings, they'd say, well, it's because we can make tools, and nothing else can make tools. And of course it turns out that Egyptian vultures use rocks and they drop them on ostrich eggs to break them open. And the crows of New Caledonia are really clever at using sticks to solve problems. Like if you put a bit of food here, they'll take a little bit of bendy metal and they'll make themselves a tool. And here she is in action, doing her thing. And of course this is really important to their survival. New Caledonia, it's a very remote island in the Pacific. Here the birds use these tools to get at grubs and other tasty morsels. And they're so clever, there's even been stamps dedicated to them. And what I love about this stamp is it shows the tools that they make from pandanus leaves, and they tear the leaves to make new tools. And what is really remarkable is that the types of tool they use varies across New Caledonia, and they're even evolving, they're even improving the tool design. So these are really, really remarkably clever birds. Here's another super clever bird. Now this is Alex with Irene Pepperberg, who's at Harvard University. Alex is a grey parrot. And Irene taught Alex to understand concepts like he could distinguish between different colours and shapes. He had a concept of zero. He could understand a question like what shape is green and wood. Really smart bird. In fact, when poor Alex died in 2007, The Economist even ran an obituary because this is such a smart and impressive bird and really changed our picture of bird intelligence. You know, these can be really, really clever creatures. So I think if you put it all together, the fact that owls can go huge distances, they can work at night, they can remember things, they can navigate, they could well be pretty smart as well. Owl male, it's a bit of a long shot, but it's not impossible. So that's one fascinating overlap with Muggle science. Now what about dragons? Surely, you know, that's just all made up. It's rubbish, isn't it?